Today, I have a special guest, Matti Sulanto of Sulanto Blog, and he is a Panasonic Lumix ambassador. And, I really wanted to have him in the stream a couple of weeks ago, but, technical difficulties for whatever reason, I'm having them again today. But we're here now, and we're going to talk about Panasonic Lumix for 2021. And we're also going to talk about some photography related topics that I think will be really beneficial because we don't talk about these things enough, I think, um, in our channels, about flash photography and also about printing. So we're going to get to that as well. And then after that, we're going to open up the stream for live questions from the chat section. So if you have any questions for Matti, try and save them until after we're done with kind of our initial interview and discussion, and then we'll start answering your questions from there because I'm sure you'll have many. But thanks so much, Matti, for your patience and going through and installing Skype. I don't know why why we have such bad luck, had such bad luck with this, but we're here now,
Yeah,
and
we tried this yesterday, and everything was just fine. But
yeah,
somehow today it just didn't work.
somehow today it just didn't work. It's just my bad luck. But like I tell people, it would not be a Rob Trek stream unless we had technical issues. At least audio and sound is working once we got it up and running. So, okay, well, Matti, as you know, we both shoot, micro four thirds, and we shoot, full frame Panasonics. I have a Panasonic S5, and I have a Panasonic Lumix GX85, and they're both terrific cameras. And I think, for me, one of the strengths of Panasonic was really um, the what I really liked about it was the menu system and how intuitive it was for me. And of course, Panasonic, they're relatively new to the camera world, right? They didn't make film cameras that I'm aware of. So they really came
Yes,
in with Micro Four Thirds in collaboration with Olympus, and I think really created one of the greatest systems for photographers ever made, in my opinion, because it really brought back the compactness and fun back into photography, and of course the image quality is great. Um, but what I wanted to kind of get a feel for was, what are your hopes for Panasonic on the Micro Four Thirds front for 2021? Because it's been about 6 months since we've heard anything about like a GH6 coming, and I just want to get a feel for what your hopes are for 2021 for the Micro Four Thirds from Panasonic Lumix.
okay. First, I'd like to say that what I'm going to say is just my opinion, not a fact. I'm a Lumix ambassador, but they don't tell me what they are going to release in the next half a year or 3 months. But of course, I hope the much rumored GH5 will finally come out, and we're gonna see some like completely new Micro Four Thirds gear or cameras, because I've said it many times that the sensor in every Micro Four Thirds camera at the moment is quite old. Not that it's a bad sensor, but I think we need a new sensor, if not anything else, only for the credibility at least. And I think the video specs of some competitors are so awesome now that we need better video features too on a Lumix camera, and especially on Micro Four Thirds cameras, because in order to stay competitive. And
Okay.
I also hope Panasonic is going to, or I don't know how likely it is, but I hope they would upgrade some of their lenses with the weather sealing, because they have some really, really nice prime lenses, but they're not weather sealed currently, and I hope they would do that.
Yeah, that's true because I think I don't buy a lot of Panasonic lenses myself. I just have the 25 and a 7 to 14, but neither one is weather sealed. And I was showing people this morning, this is how I weather seal my lenses. is I wrap it in saran wrap because I watched your video on snow. I said, "Oh, it's snowing out," so I thought I'd go out and get some snow pictures. But then the lenses aren't weather sealed and the flash is not. But definitely, it's weather sealing is a big deal, and a new sensor. There's a rumor, I guess, about Sony has a 30 megapixel 8K sensor that they're thinking might go into a GH6 if at all. Um, do you have anything official you can talk about on the GH6? Have you heard anything, or have they announced anything publicly on that?
No,
Okay.
honestly, I don't know anything, and even if I knew, I couldn't
Oh, I know
say.
you
But
couldn't tell us, but
honestly,
that's why I was
I
asking
don't
is,
know. I don't
y-
know anything.
yeah, I was just wondering if there was anything publicly released that you could tell
No.
people about any new cameras coming. Um, we all rely on the same rumor channels as everyone else, right? L rumors, for example, Micro Four Thirds, or 43 Rumors is another
Yeah.
place I go to a lot to look for anything new coming out, and it's been pretty quiet. But that said, the video features, I guess the GH5 was pretty solid with video features. Was there a particular video feature that you thought maybe the competition has caught up or surpassed Panasonic in that respect?
Oh, well, it seems that I don't need 8K recording, but it's looks like it's becoming the new standard, at least some kind of high-end standard, and
Oh, yeah,
also 4K, 120p or 100p, and then also 4K 60p 10-bit would be really nice to have.
yeah, wow, yeah,
So,
4K 60
but
definitely.
yes, but I'm really happy I'm using the GH5S for most of my videos. Even right now, I'm using it, and I'm really happy uh, with that camera. But in order to stay competitive, it's obvious that the Panasonic also needs to update some of their video features.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. Just on paper, right? They have to have those things, 8K video or 4K
Yeah,
60, and yeah, that makes sense. And that's unfortunate that they try to make a do-it-all camera because I really like their concept with the G9, right? Because that was primarily a photographer's camera. Um, what another camera I really like from Panasonic is the LX100 series. I'd like to see another version of that come out with an updated sensor, updated EVF, and then maybe a mic jack.
yeah.
That would be because I think that's a great street camera. With a fixed lens, but it's got an excellent lens, and that's
It is. It's a very nice camera.
yeah. I mean, as is, the version 2 is very good, but it was only a minor upgrade from the version 1. The version,
Yeah, true.
yeah, version 3 with a new EVF, a mic jack, keep the lens, keep everything else the same. That would be a great, perfect camera, really, I think, for street. Um, and let's talk a little bit about the Panasonic L mount, uh,
Mhm.
because the most recent camera is the S5, which, you know, I really like this camera. I haven't taken it out enough. Um, but I think L mount really this was a very significant camera for Panasonic Lumix to release compact full frame camera that can really do everything. It's kind of a jack of all trades, right? And it has some very competent video features as well. But what are your hopes or expectations for Panasonic and the L mount for 2021?
Uh, I guess it's pretty much the same as for Micro Four Thirds. I mean, even better video capabilities,
Hmm.
and I'd like to see maybe a little bit like more pro version of the, but even more pro version of the S5, a little bit like updated viewfinder and some other little bit like more robust feeling. Not that it's not, but
Hmm.
if you compare it to the S1, for example, the S1 feels a lot like a lot even more professional tool. But for some situations, it's kind of big camera.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's about it. I'm actually quite happy with the current Panasonic full frame gear. I think now that we saw the, for example, the new Sony flagship camera, and
Hmm.
it's without any questions, it's an awesome camera. But it's somehow sometimes I feel that the gear talk and all the gear in photography, it's kind of overblown because it's all about pictures after all, and
Yeah,
um, and even current cameras are so good that I don't know what to hope for anymore. I mean,
right.
my pictures will not get any better if I get a new camera. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm content with a little pocket camera, honestly, to get pictures. Uh, if I need to improve my photography, I don't need much more than just a little pocket camera. I do enjoy shooting Micro Four Thirds for the ergonomics and using a real camera, but yeah, cameras are so good now. And the L mount, I think, what I'd like to see and let's talk about what we'd like to see maybe for 2021 in terms of new gear, lenses, cameras, things we'd like to see. Um, like you were talking about a more robust S5, a compact camera that has, more maybe better weather sealing, a few more features.
Hmm.
And I really like the lens lineup. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the lens lineup for the Panasonic L
Yeah.
mount that are coming out and what's out now.
I hope those small, affordable prime lenses will come out sooner than later because they look really, really nice. And the price, at least now the 85 millimeter is out already. And if the rest of the lineup, those primes are priced similarly, it looks very attractive. I think the price is around, what, 700 or so units, either in the
Yeah.
States or here in Europe. So it's I wouldn't call it cheap, but it's certainly affordable.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely more in line with what we've seen for full frame lenses from, like Nikon, for example. I shot Nikon for a long time. And the 85 millimeter is a standard, the 50 millimeter. Is there a 50 millimeter kind of in a regular price range right now?
No, but there should be a 50 millimeter f1 1.8
Mm-hmm.
soon, but
Good.
I don't
Yeah.
know the exact schedule, but I believe they are coming out this year or this year at least. I think so.
Yeah. Because the nifty 50, right? Those have always been $200-300 lenses. And if they can come out with like a $300, $400 50 millimeter f1.8 and make that a kit lens or something for a new, compact full frame, I think that would do really well. Uh, but honestly, the 20 to 60 that comes with it now, this is a relatively new lens. This lens is an awesome focal length between 20 and 60.
It's
Um,
really, really nice. Yes.
yeah, I mean it's just wide enough for like doing terrific landscapes and videography, vlogging. But then you can get into about 60 millimeters and still do some portrait and street and things like that. But definitely a
Yes.
few primes. Like Lauren is mentioning, a 50 millimeter from Canon is now 199, and they have an f1.8, and I feel like that's really the direction Panasonic needs to go is give us some small, lightweight, affordable primes, weather sealed. Do you know if that 85 millimeter is a weather sealed lens or not?
I think so. Yeah, I think all of the new lenses should be the upcoming
Hmm.
lenses. I believe they are all weather sealed.
Okay, good, good. So yeah, they're gonna charge a little more for weather sealing, but that's okay. I mean, I think it's definitely worth the price. It's better than, doing this, right?
Yes, definitely.
Uh, but how about in Micro Four Thirds? Is there a lens roadmap for Panasonic right now for the Micro Four Thirds? Have you seen anything?
No, I don't think they have any like a special roadmap or any updated
Hmm.
roadmap right now. But I think that the lineup basically is good already, no problem. I just
Yeah,
wish some of the lenses would be weather sealed.
right. And the image quality out of the Panasonic Micro Four Thirds lenses, and I have three of them, are all excellent. Just as is. They're just not weather sealed. So
Yes,
maybe that would be something that they could do without too much re-engineering and release them quickly. Because the optics already are excellent. If they could just weather seal them somehow without having to redesign all the lenses, they could probably get those out pretty quickly. But yeah, it's a
yeah.
little it's a little it's a little disappointing that they haven't released like a roadmap of future lenses for the Micro Four Thirds system. I wish they would have done that just to give us uh, something to look forward to for 2021 because it has been very quiet. Like I said, about 6 months ago, there was all kinds of rumors about a GH6, and then it's been crickets since then.
But I think one reason is that the Micro Four Thirds lineup, lens lineup especially, it is already pretty good and complete.
Hmm.
And now they want to build up their full frame lineup. And
Ah,
because I think the Micro Four Thirds lineup, it's not lacking anything,
true,
at least.
true.
Uh, and then, of course, you can also use those excellent Olympus lenses. So I don't, um,
I think their time is better
I
spent full frame.
yeah, sure,
Hmm.
because I don't know what kind of photography are you doing if you can't find uh, your Micro Four Thirds lens? I mean, there are so many of them already. So what?
Yeah,
I mean, the only thing is would be nice to see some minor updates like weather sealing or something. But there are so many Micro Four Thirds lenses, so many good excellent Micro Four Thirds lenses.
yes,
So I think it's just makes more sense to build up now the full frame lineup because that's not complete yet. That's just my opinion.
yeah. And I guess if they have to focus on lenses and gear, I think yeah, flushing out their L mount system would be the right way to go. Because like you said, there is a roadmap for the L mount, the 85, the 50,
Yes.
and a couple others, right? Um, which will be excellent lenses if the 20 to 60 is any indication, because that's like a $600 lens, but I mean I compared the 20 to 60 lens against my 12 to 40 Pro lens on a Micro Four Thirds, and just looking at them, they look the same. But when you really pixel peep and really get in there, you can see it's consistently just a little bit sharper. And that's a kit
Mm.
lens versus a pro lens on Micro Four Thirds, right? So I
Yes.
think it's definitely an excellent lens, and they and I think their partnership with Leica um, gives them some additional, I guess, expertise. Do you know the relationship, say, between Leica and Panasonic in terms of their lenses?
I think there are not many people who
Oh,
knows
really?
the details.
Okay.
I think I've said it before. I think that when Panasonic makes their Leica lenses, they get Leica approval or some sort of Leica approval for those lenses, but I
Yeah,
don't think they are actually made by Leica, those lenses, but Leica approves the lens.
right.
I think it's something like that. And I believe it's the same system with some other similar arrangements when Zeiss brand, for example, is printed on some phone or whatever, then I don't think the lens is necessarily made by Zeiss. It's just approved by them. That's what I
Right.
think.
No, I mean that makes sense because they have their name on it, Leica and Zeiss. So they're going to want to look at the lens before they allow anyone else to manufacture it. So it's going to meet
Yes.
some minimum standard, right? Um,
Yep.
and that's why, like I said, I've never been disappointed by any Panasonic lens I've owned. The little 12 to 32 pancake kit lens is sharper than the Olympus 14 to 42 kit lens, unquestionably. Better contrast, and I love the Leica 15 millimeter prime. That's kind of on my short list. So there's so many lenses, and having that Leica name on it, I think definitely keeps the level of quality up there. Like Panasonic puts a lot of extra work to make sure Leica will approve it if that's if that's how that works. Um, so I think another thing about 2021, we're going into our second month now, but I think we're still seeing a lot of the same challenges we did in 2020. And I guess at this point, what challenges do you see still present in 2021, and have you overcome some of those challenges, or how have you overcome some of those maybe in your photography?
In my photography,
Yes.
uh, I guess I wrote some points down. Let me
Hmm.
see. I think when I think about my photography and my YouTube channel, I think because we have these restrictions and lockdowns all over the place globally, the situation here in Finland is uh, pretty good. I mean, we can go out and do things pretty
Hmm.
freely, at least so far.
Yeah.
But it leads to people shooting less because photography is somehow connected to with at least many people connect photography with travel and some
Yeah.
like uh, uh, adventures and those are kind of impossible right now or very difficult to do. But what I try to do with my YouTube channel is just keep people inspired and keep them shooting,
Yeah.
and that's my uh, vision. And also, world just changes, and we have to think new ways to do things or invent new ways to kind of do photography and do other things too. And I think that's inevitable at this point, and the world is never going to go back to what it was before this pandemic. And we just kind of have to deal with that and maybe find new ways to photograph
Hmm.
and figure out new projects and stuff that we can actually do. Because if we keep thinking what we can't do, that doesn't take us anywhere, right? We just
Right.
have to find out new ways to do our photography, and uh, I think that would be the most important thing. Just try to think positively
Hmm.
and think about the new possibilities that you may have. and
Yeah.
things will get better eventually, and it's important to be ready when they get better, and then be ready to do things again.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to be able to just get out again. Right now, it's very similar here where I am to where you are, where we can go out and do some photography, but it's not the same. You know, there's still some anticipation or uh, when you go out, right? You're still a little. At least for me, I'm still a little bit anxious when I go out and wash my
Mm.
hands and get home, um, but you're right. You have to think about what you can do and what you cannot do, right? And really,
Yes.
I can still do a lot of things, but I'm so focused on the other things, right? That, am I too close to this person or, if, and I'm not, but it is distracting me in my photography, that's for sure. So I think that's great advice. Just think about what you can do and what you can focus on, uh, and not what you can't do. And that's what's been holding me back a little bit is I constantly, I worry too much about what I can't do when I go out. So I end up not going out sometimes. When the truth is, I can actually do a lot of things, right? um, like this morning, going out and just taking pictures of the snow, you know, and I think you really have been doing a lot of things on your channel. You've added a lot of vlogs lately where you go out with a little camera, uh, a little micro four thirds camera, go out and do some photography, and those have been great. So I watched your snow, how to take pictures of snow video a couple of times, and then I went out this morning and tried some of those things, and I thought your tip about using a orange gel to match
Yes.
the white balance was awesome. It's
About those photo walks, I plan to do more of those this year, but
great.
at the moment it's just not so easy because it's been so cold outside. It's either been snowing or then it's been really, really
Yeah.
cold, like -15, -20 Celsius. And I made this one photo walk in -21 degrees, but
Yes.
it was pretty painful actually, and
Well, I saw your
it's
gloves. They were like that thick.
yes, and my fingers were freezing still. So it's really difficult to concentrate on anything when it's that cold, at least for me. Some people claim they like that
Oh,
kind of
no.
weather, but it's too cold for me, really.
Yeah.
But I promise more photo walks this year, much more.
Good. Yeah, I look forward to it, and hopefully, I'll get out there too, and maybe one day when travel gets back up to speed, we'll do one together. I would really enjoy that. Um,
Lauren says I'm missing LA, and I have lived in LA once, long
oh,
time
that's
ago, and with this kind of weather, I really miss Southern California weather. No problem. I'd much rather be there weather-wise than here
yes.
right now.
Yeah, you and me both. I had a small window where I didn't mind snow and cold weather. Like 1 or 2 years, I was kind of okay with it, and then I don't know what I just, but not anymore. Most of my life, I prefer warm. But speaking of that flash tip, one thing I learned about you is that you are you're really actually very proficient with flash and flash photography, and and you actually wrote a book and you've had workshops teaching flash, and that's
Yeah.
that's an area that I think really a lot of people don't cover enough, including myself, is flash photography, because it can be a little bit difficult for beginners. But tell me a little bit about your flash photography experience and about your book and workshops and things.
Okay. Flash, because I've been doing a lot of portrait photography for clients, for magazines, editorial
Hmm.
portraits, corporate portraits, and flash is, or flashes are an essential tool when you do that kind of photography. And back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have any LED lights or stuff like that. So that was, you had to learn that, and you had to learn how to use those flashes. And I've done so many thousands of portraits with flashes, and you get a certain routine when you've done like a few thousand of those. Then you have a
Wow.
certain kind of routine when you set up your lights and all that. And I have organized many flash workshops also here in Finland in the past, and I've seen how difficult it is for beginners to manage the technical side of a manual flash, whether it's this kind of small unit or a studio flash. But it seems to be very difficult for beginners to kind of figure out how it works, even though it's not difficult at all when you finally kind of get the idea.
Right, right. I mean, it just takes really, I think, honestly, you just go out for about a half an hour with a flash and shoot all manual, and you get a feel for it. But you have to have a fundamental understanding of exposure, right? What stops are, aperture, shutter speed, how those things affect flash.
Yes,
Um,
you absolutely have to know how your camera's manual exposure works. You just have to, like you said, have a fundamental understanding, and you have to know it so well that you don't even have to think about it. And then you can start practicing with manual flash. And the manual flash is a very, very simple device and not difficult to learn. But I think it's difficult for beginners, because then you have two exposures, kind of. You have your camera's exposure to deal with, and then you have the flash exposure that you kind of have to combine with your camera's exposure. And if you don't have a really like a clear understanding of those two, it can be difficult. But it's not. It's very easy. Even I can do it, so you can do it too.
Let me hold up your flash for a second, because I mean, look at the what do you got? Some tape on there, maybe some
Uh,
Velcro, some modifier.
this
What
is
is
a
all that?
yeah yeah, this is a Velcro strip around my flash, and this is a Hornell photo product. I don't know if this brand exists anymore, but
Hmm.
this is really handy. You can wrap it around your flash head, and then you can attach all kinds of gels and stuff um, on your flash. Just to, there are some snoots and grids and all kinds of stuff that you can attach with the Velcro on your flash, and this is very, very handy. I have this on all my cheap Yongnuo flashes
Yeah,
that I use.
yeah.
I have
Okay.
like a neutral
Oops.
density filter here. It's two.
Oops, sorry. Let me. Yeah, the gels and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I've experimented a little bit with gels, and ultimately I don't use them that much, but time to time they're kind of fun. Uh, but those are sort of the directly on flash type um, uh, light modifiers. But what other kind of modifiers did you use when you were doing, say, your portrait photography? Because there's all kinds, right? What do they call them? Beauty dishes and soft boxes and umbrellas. I mean, talk a little bit about the
My,
differences between those three, and what did you most typically use? What was your lighting setup like?
my okay. When I was doing, let's say, if I'm doing a portrait for a magazine or something, usually there's, or even corporate portraits, the schedule is usually very like tight. I may have only 5 minutes to actually shoot. So I gotta be very effective. And my favorite light modifier is just a normal white umbrella because it's very fast to set up. Soft boxes are nice, but they're usually much more cumbersome to work with. And when you're shooting portraits, umbrella does a pretty good job too, depending on the umbrella, of course. But generally speaking, I think umbrella is doing a really good job as a main light. And then I have some grids, maybe for a rim light or something, and that's about it. I'm a very simple guy, and my lightings are very simple and effective. But just a white umbrella is my main light modifier when I make portraits.
Yeah. So just a simple, is it shoot through, or do you do a reflective type?
It
Uh,
depends. It depends really. The main difference is that if it's a shoot-through umbrella, you can bring it much closer to your subject
mhm.
because the is it the stem or whatever the rod that it's in the middle of the
Yeah.
umbrella, that is not in the way because it's kind of behind the umbrella if it's a shoot-through umbrella.
Hmm.
But the reflective umbrella can be good uh, for some more directional light. Especially if you have a deep dome-shaped umbrella, that can create very, very beautiful light for some situations.
Right. What do you think about those like beauty dish type modifiers? Have you used those, or can you recommend those?
Uh, it depends. It depends what kind of light you want. Of
Hmm.
course, everything depends on that. What kind of a light would you want to create? And a beauty dish, the name comes from the fact that I guess it was first used for some fashion shots with
Hmm.
the pretty models, and usually the light is kind of nice, but it's not very soft, but it works well in some situations. So it all depends what kind of light you are going to create, because when you are creating the lighting from scratch, then you can do whatever you want, right?
Hmm. Oh, I didn't know that. They gave it that name because they used to shoot models and stuff. And they said, "Let's get the beauty dish." Yeah, to me, the beauty dish is sort of a. It feels like it's a kind of a glorified reflect umbrella, just smaller. You know?
Yeah, the light that comes from a beauty dish, it's different from the light that comes from umbrella, and
Mm.
sometimes it's very discrete, the difference, but there is a difference, and I guess those are those things that once you get better with your lighting, then you can see that there is a difference,
Yeah.
I guess. But
Yeah.
just the basic umbrella is a very, very useful and versatile light modifier, even though it's nothing fancy, but it's still a very good tool.
Yeah, I agree. I just use a simple shoot through umbrella for the live streams and gives nice soft light. I just have one, and it works great.
Yes.
But speaking of lighting in general, though, because flash, there's really a couple of different ideas here. There's, when you do portraits, right? Whether it's indoors or outdoors, but you know, high speed sync has been sort of a I don't know how long it's been around, but it feels like it hasn't been around that long. But high speed sync flash versus say, doing it another way using ND filters. So tell what do you think brought about high speed sync flash? What are the differences or advantages of that versus using an ND filter, or maybe some disadvantages of using high speed sync?
Yeah, I think the high-speed sync, it's been around for a while because I remember I think I had a Canon film camera back in the 90s, and it had high-speed sync, if I'm not completely wrong. But anyway, the main difference is, of course, that if you if you're going to use the high-speed sync, you're going to need a compatible flash that is compatible with your camera's flash system. There are some workarounds, but basically that's it. But if you're going to use an ND filter on your camera's lens, and then you can use any flash, and you have probably some more control over the flash anyway, because the high-speed flash feature or function is actually quite limited. When you start using it, you realize that it's not the holy grail, or how do you say? And the purpose of the high-speed flash or using an ND filter on your lens is, of course, that most cameras have the highest flash sync speed, around 1/2000th of a second, 1/250th of a second, or in that ballpark. And if you are shooting in bright daylight, and even if you can use 250th of a second, you are still forced to use something like maybe f8 or even f11 if you want to darken the ambient light a little bit, or underexpose the ambient light a little bit. So it's impossible to use wide apertures like f2 or f1.4 or something like that. And then in that situation, if you would like to use a wide aperture with your flash, you're going to need an ND filter on your lens so that you can shoot at 1/250th of a second and, let's say, f2. That combination is not possible without an ND filter. And the other option is to use so-called high-speed sync flash that can work with fast shutter speeds, like 1/8000th of a second. But then, like I said, you need a flash that is compatible with your camera's flash system.
Right. Yeah, that's always been, they always charge so much more too for flashes that have high speed sync, but it seems like most of them have that now, but there's nothing like buying a $50 Yongnuo flash and using an
Like
ND
this.
filter to get the same results, right? Versus spending
Yes.
$200-300 for a compatible high-speed sync flash. So definitely, I think, yeah, one of the advantages of going with ND is you can just use any flash and get started and get great results without spending a ton of money for high-speed sync. And
Yes.
like you said,
I can recommend these. These are some cheap Yongnuo flashes, but anything like this is just fine if you want to start with flashes. You don't need any expensive gear or expensive flashes or anything. Just something very simple like this. This is fully manual flash, and I've used this for some professional work too, and never had any problems with this.
Yeah, yeah, it's the biggest thing the I mean the biggest problem I had with high speed sync when I was practicing and learning how to use it was, and this is something they don't really talk about much, is it kills the power output or the light output of the flash. um so that even even though, yeah, you can kill the ambient light with shutter speed, the output power of the flash also gets killed. And
Yes.
you really need much more powerful lights if you're going to use high speed sync.
Yes, the high speed sync or the high speed flash, actually the flash output comes from a series of short. It's like a strobo or something. It flashes many times and creates one like a long flash when it like fires in high speed mode, and that can only give so much output, and it can be difficult to actually work with those because the light output is just so miserable.
Yeah, definitely. I noticed that, and I ended up preferring using ND filter over high speed sync. Um,
Yeah, there's a
what?
comment that says that if you're doing sport photography and you need a fill light, yes, there are some situations where
Hmm.
the high-speed sync flash is the only option. And one of those would be that if you have your flash on your camera and you need fill light, then it makes a lot of sense. But if you're shooting portraits or something outside, then it's probably not the best option. But of course, there are some situations where the high-speed flash is really necessary or the only sensible option.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. If you need the shutter speed, because your sync speed is, 1/200th, 1/250th of a second, without using high speed sync. And sports action, you typically need to be 1/800th, 1/1000th, 1/2000th. So
Yeah.
that's a good point. Thank you, Stanislav, for bringing that up and for the super chat. It's greatly appreciated. Um, but that's a very good point about using it as fill-in flash for uh, for sports action. I didn't think of, that would, I'll have to experiment with that a little bit. That's something I've never even considered myself. Um, and speaking of like flashes, though, because there's some flashes you can't do high speed sync. We've talked about sort of the basic, cheap, regular flashes that we all know and love. But, you know, another recent development I think have been LED flashes, LED lighting that people are using now for photography, where you never saw people use constant lighting or LED lighting for photography. What do you think the advantages are that LED brings to the table, or what problems does LED lighting solve for photography?
Well, of course, because LED light, like the one that I'm using here right now, it makes continuous light, and then you can see right away what you are getting. If let me turn this flash on, and if I'm kind of trying to light myself now with this flash, I can't see the light unless uh, oh, unless I flash it, and then I can see, and then I have to take a picture and see, uh, check out like chimp how it looks. But with any continuous light, like the sunlight or LED light or whatever, I can see right away what I get, and that makes it a lot easier, uh, kind of to see the lighting itself. And with flashes, you always have to take a picture first to see the light, except with some studio lights that have so-called modeling light, which is a continuous light that somehow mimics or simulates the, the light that comes out of the flash when you take the picture. But if you want to learn to light, then my recommendation is to use some continuous light, because it's so much easier to see what the light is actually doing, where the shadows fall and where the highlights are and all that. It's way, way more easier. But the problem, of course, with LED lights is that if you need to go outside, you need really super powerful LED lights in order to compete with the sun. But if you're inside in a studio or in your home, then any continuous light is much better for learning to light than a flash.
And speaking of the light itself, do you think the quality of the LED lighting is as good as regular flash? Because I know, like when I use just a light bulb that I buy from Walmart, and put it in, I notice the colors aren't quite as good. So the quality of the LED also, I think, the ability to, they have RGB type LED lighting. What are some? I mean, is that something too that you started using maybe in your photography is the color type LEDs that can change colors and things?
Yes, the light that I have here, I can change the color of the light. Now it's yellow now, and now it's back to the daylight again. And I think the current new LED lights are really good. And also some of these cheap flashes tend to be kind of blue. The light that comes out of these, it's not really daylight. It's much bluer than the daylight. So if you want something nice color, you usually have to use some maybe some mild orange gel on the flash to get it really like nice daylight color. So I don't think the quality of the light from any modern LED light is any big problem, at least. Maybe some older LED lights may have some problems, and maybe the color of the light is not that good. They have some spikes in the spectrum, and the light may be some like a green or cyan or whatever. But I think LED lights have come a long way, and now they are really good. Even some of the more affordable LED lights are, in my opinion, based on my experience, they are pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I have found is when I was shopping for LED lighting, I haven't bought any yet really, but when I shop for LED lighting, I did look for the color quality. And I really like the fact that you can change colors like you did just now. Um, you can get very creative, with using different color LEDs on a shoot, I think. Whereas in the old
Yes, and
days,
it's
we would put gels on, right?
Yes, and it's so easy because you don't need any gels. And even if you have a big light like this one that I have here, it's pretty big. But so if I wanted to put a gel on that light, I would need like a really huge piece of gel in order to
Yeah,
cover the whole light.
right, right. But you can just push a button. I've seen
Yeah.
some that have apps now, right on your phone. You can change the color right on your phone.
Yes.
It's I think that could be the future eventually is all LED flashes. Some of my viewers like Nature with Music is talking about his LED roto light that he can actually use it as a flash, like pop a light, I
Yeah.
guess. Um, which is yeah, it's just amazing. But we're not quite there yet. But we're getting there, right? We're
Yes.
getting there. But yeah, LEDs, they're still not quite because Walter's asking, can they deliver the power of a regular strobe, like 400 watt seconds, 600 watt seconds? Have you seen that type of LED lighting?
Um, there are all kinds of lights. They are using LED lights in the movie industry, but I
Hmm.
guess some of those really high quality, powerful LED lights can be really expensive too.
Yeah.
But for example, the one that I have here, it's quite powerful, and it's not cheap light, but it's not expensive. I think the price over here is something like maybe 800 euros or something. So it's not a cheap light, but it's not
Hmm.
super expensive either, and it's pretty powerful when I turn it all the way.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's on minimum power when I'm
Wow.
done.
Yeah, that's pretty
I,
substantial.
yes,
Because right now I assume you're at like 1/60th of a second for the video, and you just blew yourself out there. It was like way overexposed. So definitely
yes,
indoor portrait work, LEDs can handle it.
yes. But sometimes when you're shooting portraits, the the people who your subjects, they may prefer a flash because if you have a bright continuous light, it can be quite intimidating. But if you have a flash that there's no light until you flash it, so maybe more it's more comfortable and convenient to be the model when there are no like really super bright lights shining at you all the time. So sometimes uh, the portrait subjects like flash better than a continuous light.
Right, right. That's a good point, right? Is you're right. It could be a distraction too, right? Having a continuous light on the
Yes.
model if it's very, very bright.
Yeah, especially
Um,
if you're not used to it. Like if you or I'm taking portraits of some like ordinary people who are not used to being in front of the camera, then they might, think it's, you know, um, what was the word? Um, Not very nice when there's a really like a
yeah,
super bright light shining
yeah. It's
at
like
you
being
all the time.
interrogated, right,
Yeah, yeah,
by the
yeah.
police.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Because for many people the portrait situation is not very nice if they are not used to it. Many people don't like it, and of
yeah.
course, my job as a photographer is try to make the situation as comfortable as possible.
Mm.
And sometimes it can help if I'm just using flash and not some super bright light.
Right. That makes sense. I didn't think about that either. There's so many things here when you really start to look at products like LED lighting or versus flash, and we were talking about high-speed sync and ND. These are nice new features, but there's always advantages, disadvantages, right, to anything that comes out new, and there's definitely a lot to think about that, you've
But
brought
hey,
up here.
now I have to say that I have maybe 20-25 minutes the most time here, so
Oh,
maybe we
okay.
should move
Okay,
on
why don't
to
we
the printing.
yeah, let's talk about yeah, oh my goodness, we spent a lot of time on flash there. Um that is something that comes up time to time. I'm very curious, Maddie. Do you print your own photos, and how often do you print? Tell me about your printing habits.
I print all the time, every week. Sometimes I print these small prints that I just stick on my
Oh
fridge with
wow.
magnets. And sometimes I print, hold on, sometimes I print something like this.
Wow. Wow, that's
And
beautiful.
I have a printer, it's right behind me, and I print at least once a week. I print something, and I love prints. They are
Wow.
so super nice, and your pictures, they will look completely different when they are on paper compared to how they look on your screen. There's a big difference.
Wow. Wow, those are beautiful. And what are some of the advantages of, I mean, you obviously there's advantages to printing, your own photos. Tell me why you print your own photos and what some of the advantages are.
Okay, first of all, sometimes I like to put them on my wall, and you can, when you're viewing a print, it's a different experience because you are not looking at the screen, and because you can't zoom in and out when you look at a print. So you're kind of forced to look the full picture, the full composition that is here, and the whole viewing experience is way different from looking at the big screen. And also, if you have many prints, let's say these 3 prints, and you like to create a sequence, or you have a project that you've been working on, and you like to sequence your pictures, it's so much different or better way to lay these down on the table or floor or something and arrange them. You get the whole new angle or a whole new, like, whole new angle when you see those prints on the table or on your floor compared to the screen where you see them small side by side in Lightroom or wherever.
And do you feel like when you print your photos, how do you feel like you can improve your photography if you start printing, or tell me your feelings there.
Yes, I think you can improve your photography when you see your photos printed. Because when you print, first of all, I'm going to show you some more prints here while I'm talking. When you print, if Robin is still there, he knows where this is taken. um, I was going to say, yes, when you see your pictures on paper, you will see some things that you didn't see when you saw the same picture on the screen, because you just look the way you look at prints is different from looking at the screen, and that way you can improve your photography. And one thing also with prints is that some pictures will look better when they are printed small, and some pictures will look better when they are printed big. And that's also something to consider when you start printing, that you sort of have to start figuring out, should I print these pictures, big or small? And that's something you really don't have to think about when you only look your pictures on screen.
Okay, and that's one of the things that you know I've noticed when I print sometimes, there's
Hey, sorry,
yeah.
I want to answer one question. My printer choice right now, I have the Epson P800.
Ah,
Shore Color P800. It's a very good printer. I had an Epson even before, but that broke down. I printed so much it broke down,
wow.
and I've had this P800 for a few years now, and I like it. It's a very good printer. I can print up to A2 size, which is this,
Wow.
and this is big enough for home use, I think.
Yeah, that definitely that's a beautiful print you have, and seeing it large, and I that's a really good point about printing is sometimes the pictures look better on smaller prints, and other prints you have to see them large. Um,
Yes, exactly. Some pictures look better in big size. Some pictures look better in small size. It's just the way it is, and it's
wow.
something you have to consider when you start printing, and you also learn something new when you start thinking about that.
Wow, those are amazing. I mean, just looking at them on the stream here, those prints just look really amazing. Um,
I'm gonna show you some portraits
yeah,
too that I
please.
found. This is shot for a client, and I just printed it for for fun for myself. This is an old photograph, but and here's a street portrait that I shot in Stockholm, Sweden, a long time ago. And this here I used the actually the high-speed flash and daylight combination.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, printing is a lot of fun. Everyone, you should
Whoops.
start printing.
Wow, look at that. I tell you that, seeing it on paper and print like that is just, I don't know, it just makes the photograph 10 times better, I think. And I always tell people, print is forever, right? Digital can be deleted or disappear, but print is forever. Um,
There's another question. Which paper do you favor?
mhm.
I think my favorite paper is the Hahnemühle Photo Rag 300-gram paper. That's my favorite. I think, for example, this is printed on that paper, and also most of the pictures that I showed you are printed on that paper. This too, and it's a fantastic matte, thick, very heavy matte surface paper. It's really beautiful, but it's not very like durable. It can't, if you handle your prints a lot, then you can easily like ruin them. So it's not made for um, um, anything where you have to handle or hand out your prints so that people can kind of touch them.
Yeah, and
Then some like a plastic type of paper like this is better for that. But if you want high quality prints, then that's my favorite paper
so it's a
probably.
matte paper.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying you prefer matte for high quality versus say a glossy.
Uh, it it depends, but usually I prefer a matte surface paper like
Hmm.
this. It's so beautiful, the tonality and the everything. It's
Yeah,
just so nice.
it is nice. Wow, it inspires me to go out and do some photography just so I can print them, you know? Um, well, I think I'm gonna print some stuff after this stream. And just if you can give a couple of tips maybe to help people that want to start printing. Let's say they just have a little printer like I do, they want to print some 4x5s or 8x10s. One of the challenges sometimes is getting the print to match what you see on the screen. Um,
Hey, you gotta have a calibrated workflow. That's one of the key things that you have to have. Otherwise, it can be frustrating if you can't get the results that you want. And it's really frustrating.
yeah.
But some of those small cheap printers can't be calibrated the way these bigger, better printers can.
Hmm.
And also you can't install some fine art paper profiles
Mm.
if you have an inexpensive small printer. And then it might be useful to use, let's say you have probably an Epson or Canon printer, because those are pretty much the only brands that make photo printers. It might help if you use uh, the same brand paper. Then your printer is Epson paper, Epson printer, and then it's probably better or easier to get the results that you want. But my printer, because it's a little bit better printer, um, many like a Hanemühle, they have their own paper profiles
Hmm.
for certain papers, for certain printers, certain little bit better printers like my printer and some other Canon and Epson uh, little bit better models.
Hmm.
And then you can download and install that specific profile for example, this Hanemühle
Wow.
paper. And then uh, it gets all easier because then you get the result. The picture on your screen looks the same as the picture that
Yeah.
comes out of your printer.
Wow. Definitely. Yeah. Because that was definitely one of the challenges I had was I was just using regular copy paper and I didn't know anything about profiles and things like that. I'd go to print and I'm like, man, this doesn't look anything like what I edited on my screen. Uh,
Yes,
and then I found out that, you really need a printer that you really want to get good prints. You have to have a printer that will allow you to install your own, like I think they're called ICC profiles or paper
yes,
profiles, things like that. And then, whatever software you're using to print can select those profiles to give you the best results. But
but it's not difficult. You just gotta be like careful and find out what you need to do, but it's not difficult. And I'm a big proponent of printing and prints, and
yes,
I hope more people would print their pictures. I think they would learn many new things, and they probably might even appreciate some of their pictures more or better if they printed them.
wow. Yeah, I'm definitely going to print some after this stream. I'm really psyched now. After seeing those prints you made, I'm like, oh my goodness. So, all right, let's kind of do a little bit fun thing here. what I wanted to do, let me pull up my 1 second. I'm going to pull something up here. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, just some fun questions for us. Uh,
Scary.
no, don't be scared. I mean, they're easy ones. These are questions I get all the time. And you know what? If and this is kind of going back to gear, but if you could only have and you know one camera and one lens, what would you pick?
Oh, that's a tough question, but I probably, at the moment, I would probably pick the Lumix S5 and the Sigma 35mm f2 lens.
Ooh, nice.
Because, and that goes way back because that similar kind of combination has always been my favorite. When I started photography
Mm-hmm.
back in the late 70s, even then my favorite was 35mm camera body and a 35mm lens, and it's still my favorite combination. And yes,
Wow.
it's just the way it's been. It's always been like that, and I still prefer that kind of. If I could only have one.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the 35 millimeter focal length or 17 on micro four thirds. That's my favorite too. But you would go full frame 35 millimeter. That's great. All right.
Yeah, that's what I would take today if I could. Right now, if I could
Okay.
only have one, that would be my
Yeah,
choice.
mine would always be Pen F with the 17 millimeter. That would be my choice. Not too
Hey,
dissimilar.
it's not a bad choice either.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is something, and I want you to answer this in a non-photography way. Like if you were given a test on any subject other than something photography related, what would you do take a test on?
um, I'd probably take a test on how to make bread.
Bread. Wow, that's interesting. How to make
Well,
bread.
out of photography, I have had in the past, I've had several like interests or hobbies, and one of them in my previous life was cars.
Uh-huh.
Um, a car. I've always loved cars and motors and stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. I've done all kinds of stuff with cars, but that's not part of my life anymore. Uh, but I also love cooking and baking, and we don't buy bread. I bake all the bread that we eat, and
Wow.
I love it, and I do it several times a week.
Wow. You make your own bread. That is something.
Yes.
I would have never expected that.
I've done that at least 20 years or so.
Wow.
I'm pretty good at it.
Baking bread. Wow. You're gonna have to do a video on that, man.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah. And that leads me to the other thing, because I thought your answer would be something car related, right? So this
It would have been maybe 5 6 years ago, but not anymore.
yeah.
I still love especially vintage
Yeah.
cars, but I also love airplanes. I have a bit of
Wow.
history with airplanes too, but right now I've kind of moved on.
Okay. Well, all right. So this is kind of the last question, and we'll try and answer a few questions from the chat section. So everyone, start queuing up your questions that you might have for Maddie. But my last question for you, Maddie, before we get viewer question is, what's the fastest you've ever driven a car?
Fastest I've driven a car. Um, it's got to be between 250 and 300, but I can't remember the exact speed. But I've had a chance to drive in Germany a few times in a very fast car, and
Are we
And
talking
yes,
kilometers or miles per hour? Oh, okay.
kilometers.
So if
That
we
would
say
be
300
in
kilometers, that's
miles.
186 miles
I
per hour.
Yes, something like that. And I can tell you a little story that this happened around 2006, and we were covering something for a car magazine with a friend of mine who's a journalist, and we drove from Helsinki to Geneva, and we first took a ferry from Finland to Germany, and then we drove from north of Germany to Geneva in 7 hours. And our average speed was 175 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
And that includes all the breaks that we took. We took 2 hour shifts. We drove all night because in Germany you can't drive that fast all the time because of the traffic. But it was nighttime, so we could go flat out all the time. But we had to take breaks because
Wow.
we were going flat out, and the fuel consumption was pretty bad
Yeah.
on that particular car. And but it was fun. I wouldn't do it again, but it was kind of fun. And we were, whenever the car was moving, we were going flat out all the time, about 250 all the time.
Wow. Wow.
And this is a true story.
Wow. That's fast. I've never driven that fast. I've broken maybe 150 kilometers once in a blue moon, but man, never like that kind of speed. That's amazing. Wow.
And I've been lucky enough to drive a few times a proper race car on a racetrack
Uh-huh.
too. Uh, when I was shooting more cars, but maybe we can talk about that in another
Yeah,
time.
definitely. Wow. Okay. Well, that's fascinating. So you're a fast driver and you like to bake bread. Who knew? My goodness. So let's see.
There,
I I saw a few questions, but if you guys have any questions for Maddie about anything we talked about, you know, Lumix for 2021 or Micro Four Thirds, the L mount, maybe flash photography or some printing. Someone I saw had asked, what is the exact model and light that you use, that LED lighting when we talked about that? What is that exactly?
my light.
Yeah.
Oh, this is called Let Go VM232 is the model.
Litco?
Let Go LEDGO VM232.
Ah, I see. I see it here. Um, so it's this one, I think.
Which one?
It should be coming up.
Ah,
Oh wait, no, I haven't transitioned. Hold on. This one here. Ah, okay. I thought Litgo LG VM232. Okay. Huh, for some reason it's not coming up. Uh, this panel. Oh, here. Yeah, this one here. Okay, so that's the lighting that Matt is using right now. Okay.
that's like a longer panel. That was more, mine is more like longer and slimmer. The picture you showed, it was more rectangular or
Yeah.
more square, the panel shape. But anyway, that's the same light.
Okay, there's this other one here. Uh, this one. Eh, I don't know what I'm clicking OK to, but there we go. Okay, good. Oh, that is much longer. It's like two of the other ones put together. Yeah, okay, I see that. Um, all right, and the physical dimension of the light is what matters the most.
Yes, it's true. It matters. The shape and size
Uh-huh.
of the light, it matters a lot. I'm not sure if it matters the most, but it matters a lot anyway.
Yeah. I guess were there any other questions for Maddie here? I physical dimensions.
I'm trying to
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through
read
because I
the
saw a few
comment.
come in, but if you'd asked the question before, please ask it again, as it'd be easier for me to find it. What do you think about single light studio portrait photography?
Well, first of all, I think that whenever you want to start learning about lighting, one light is the best way to do it, because if you use more than one light, you only get confused if you are a beginner. I mean, I don't mean to say that. Yeah, if you're a beginner, you easily get confused if you have many lights,
Hmm.
and many great portraits and pictures in the past have been done with only one light. So you don't need many lights. One or two lights are more than necessary to learn how to light, and then you can add lights when you learn more.
Right,
But I wouldn't get like 6 or 7 lights at once.
right,
Just get one or two and learn how to use them, and maybe you never need more than those two or
right. Because
one.
that kind of leads to the next question about bouncing light off maybe a whiteboard outside or maybe a wall indoors. That's kind of like adding a second light in a way. Or what do you think about white cards and things?
You can bounce light off from a reflector or whatever, but it's not as precise as it would be if you were using an umbrella or a softbox or anything. But it can be handy sometimes to bounce it off the wall or ceiling or whatever if you don't have anything else. But I would use reflectors or white cards more for fill light than to do the actual lighting. I wouldn't use that as my main light or my key light. I would rather have an umbrella or a softbox on my flash or LED
Hmm.
to use it as my key light. That's what I think. It's a little bit ambiguous when you reflect the light off a wall or a card or something.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, if you're bouncing light, you're using it more for fill rather than as a key light.
I wouldn't bounce the light off anything. I would rather use the reflector just to reflect
Mhm.
the key light and use it as a fill
Oh, I
like
see, on
that.
the opposite side of the
Yes,
light
for
as fill
example.
light. Right, right. Okay, another idea for a video using a white
Yeah,
card. But
maybe.
okay, Maddie, I know you said you had to go, so we'll just
Yeah, I gotta go.
yeah.
I
So
want to thank everybody who joined in, and sorry about the delay at the
yeah,
start.
that was my fault again. But okay, any last words for our viewers here? Like, what do you have coming up on your channel? Any words of inspiration? What? Any last words, Maddie?
Uh, I don't know. I just want to thank you, everybody. It was a really, really pleasure to see so many of you here, and I'm happy I could finally join in and be a
Yeah,
part of this live stream.
and I really appreciate your patience, Maddie, and working through. And finally, we got you on. I would have been so upset if we had to try and reschedule this again, but And thanks everybody for joining us today. Uh, Definitely go and visit Matti Sulanto's YouTube channel, Sulanto blog, and then check his about page for additional. And I have all the links below as well to his channel and other resources that Matti has. That's all photography related. He has a lot of outlets there on social media and things. So definitely check those out. And I'll be back on Tuesday. Uh, you know, live streaming again. I'm not sure exactly what, but we'll check back on Tuesday. And thanks again, Maddie, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, take care.
Yes. See you guys
Okay, bye
later.
bye.
Bye.